So in the first part of this review, we looked at the Unicorn Gundam itself and about the articulation details and stuff, and if you haven't seen that video, go check it out. It's the first part of this review. But now we're going to look at the full armor part. Now you'll notice I got some stuff out here, and we'll just talk about this a little bit. We got, first of all, you got 3 stands for these things. I got one of them holding up the dark matter booster back there, but you do get 3 of them, 1 for each shield. I'm going to just pop this off the connector and show off the shields. It's the same shield they get with the Unicorn Gundam, except that it's now attached to this huge Gatling gun array. That looks pretty awesome. So you got 3 of these, and one of them, you'll notice the shield I used in the first review was actually for this one because you get a full shield, but also, since you can't fit this on his back, you get a collapsed shield, which is this type of shield the Unicorn Gundam came with. And this one can actually swivel, which is kind of neat, but this one here is for when you want to attach it onto his back, and you can't do that right now because there's no connector for it. But we can solve that. So it's time to putting on the Unicorn Gundam parts for full armor. There are a million better ways I could have phrased that. But anyway, you take the backpack, you take this, you sort of slide it over it, and when you get it about as high, hang on, again those things in the bottom get in the way, very super annoying. And it's kind of tough to align it at first, but you just push it up until it's high enough, and then you sort of stretch that over and connect it in. And then, depending on how you want to do things, I'm going to go full armor, so I find it easier to take the shield off when you're attaching these, because these have a really scary connection method. You kind of have to twist the plastic, and that goes for a lot of this sort of assembly of the full armor, is there's lots of strong connections on weak plastic that make me really kind of uncomfortable when I'm putting this thing together. So yeah, back shield ready. Now we're just going to take a pair of bazookas he has, and these are bazookas, and now they do have a bit of tip to them, unfortunately, from when you're, just the way they're built, they have a little weakness there, which is a bit of a shame, but they're bazookas. You can tip the missile pods forward. He can hold them in his gun-holding hand better than he can his gun, actually. But you only get 1 gun-holding hand, so you can't dual-wield bazookas, which is a crime. I mean, they should have, it wouldn't have taken much plastic at all to add another holding hand, or at least a pair of open hands or something, because the hands are kind of where this guy's hurting. I mean, it just is. Anyway, you take these, there's a slot up there, there's a tab in that space there, you put them together. And once they're together, they're in pretty solidly, and yet they can still be easily removed. It's actually probably the best connections method on this figure is used to attach those. So now, if we pan up just a bit, let me see if I can just get his legs maybe back a little bit. Nope. There we go. You notice we got a nice Gundam, but he's back heavy. And well, it's time to make him more back heavy because we got these giant thrusters. But you'll notice that they actually come with stands, and if you want to, you can actually remove these and reattach this. And so if you have them on a flight stand, you can take that off. However, I would recommend keeping them on even if you have this guy on a flight stand, because these, even when they're not off, throwing the figure off balance, they have a lot of weight to them, and I feel like it puts a huge amount of stress on the parts of the backpack and even the figure in general. So I would not recommend leaving these off. I'd recommend keeping them on no matter how you have them posed, and even if you have, especially if you have them in a ground pose, because that's the only way to get them to stand. Because those little stands there, those are super, super helpful in posing this guy, because now he's basically a quadruped, and you don't have to worry too much about the leg posing. You know, he's totally fine now. So now, as a little kind of finishing touch thing, one thing I should do before I forget is take these leg missile pods. Now, these are the reason that you don't put on the gray parts when you're building them, and I did muff up a bit when I was building this guy because I accidentally trimmed off one of those gray parts. Fortunately, they are not necessary. They're just an aesthetic thing that sort of follows the flow of the suit. They aren't like tabs that are holding it in. But you just take them and you just snap them in down here and down here. And he's now got a little lower body armament. So now all he really needs is some arm weapons, and that you can accomplish. You just take one of these and you pop it onto. Actually, no, you do have to completely remove these first. So you just take, let's see, Oh, there we go, that was easy. They can be anywhere from a pain to get on to effortless, but usually the former. Especially since, there, okay, so that's all together. Now I'm not going to try to put this thing on as hip skirt again, but forget about all that junk. Let's take a look at this nice big full armored Unicorn Gundam. So, pretty big, pretty awesome. Articulation is basically the same, except anything that looks like it bumps into other stuff probably bumps into other stuff. And one thing I don't like about this kit is these shield, because you kind of have to, for things that you have to do that I'm going to get into, you need to move things around a lot, and there's these white parts on the green here that come off very easily when you're trying to manipulate the kit, because you do have to go like this for something that I'm going to bring up later on, and that's a pain to do with all the little flimsy parts on these shields. The shields are probably the worst part of the design because they're flimsy and you have to put a huge amount of force on them to get them to do what they're supposed to do. Anyway, there is one final part you get with this kit, and that is this. So what do you do with this? Well, something that will take far too long to assemble on screen, so I'm just going to cut to it and show you. Boom. This here is where the Unicorn kit gains much of its awesomeness, because this might have happened only once or twice in the anime. I'm not sure actually, because I haven't seen Unicorn. Excuse me. But you do get this piece that allows you to put all the shield on one thing like this, and it forms like this sort of whirlwind defense thing. That's why you actually can twist these parts of the shields inwards, and this is also where things like to fall off. But once you get it all together, it's fairly stable. You can spin it, and you can sit in front of the Unicorn Gundam and have it as like a defense thing. So yeah, before I forget, the Unicorn Gundam's actually pretty darn big for a Gundam. I mean, he looks even bigger here, but in reality he's only maybe like a head taller. Which is why I found high grades. A lot of people say, oh wow, this one's so big or this one's so small, but really most of them are around the same size. They're all around 18 meters. I mean, this guy's 22 meters, I think, in the show. But he doesn't feel that much bigger than the rest. Most of it's just mass from this whole thing here. So yeah, I can't think of much else to add to this. You do get this, I don't know if I showed off the blank shield very much, but you do get one. You get the 3 shields with the guns on them. You get all the parts to make this thing. You get all these missile pods, you get the bazookas, you get the booster things, you get kind of half of another shield. You can't really build all of it. It has no way to connect. And I think you actually, looking back at it and looking at the instructions, you do actually get the C-clip connector for the shield. So you can use it to attach this shield, or you can shove it into a polycap and use it to kind of fudge a connection with this. However, I actually cannot find that piece, since there are just so many parts to this kit, and, you know, I mean, whatever. In the huge box of parts that I have, I just couldn't find it, so, you know, forget it. And again, this is usually what happens with this kit, is that things fall over and then things fly apart. I mean, the kit itself is fairly solid, but it just everything here on these shields feels really thin and flimsy. So, should probably move on to some final thoughts for this kit. First of all, I love how it looks. Aesthetically, this thing's awesome. I like that it has, I like some of the design elements, like the whole 3-stand thing here. I like that it comes with a way to prop up the back of the figure. It makes it very stable. As a whole, the just Unicorn Gundam in general isn't that bad. It's not great, but it does pose pretty well, even though it has little articulation. The full armor parts, if you already have the Unicorn Gundam, I'm not sure it's worth getting the full armor one. There's also a full armor Unicorn Gundam in Unicorn mode, which has the sort of collapsed down version of the Unicorn, which I think looks awful, but that's just my opinion. I know there's some people who actually like the Unicorn quite a lot. It is nice they get 3 stands. Like I said, I have one of them kind of over here just to help the not the universal booster, the dark matter booster, just so it can stand. It is kind of a shame they have to remove these, and it's a shame that they actually just can be removed. I mean, they should be hinged instead of just vaguely re-tabbing back in. Although I will say that this is a whole lot better than the Master Grade. For those not familiar, the Master Grade Unicorn Gundam is kind of a cluster you-know-what, because it actually transforms from Unicorn mode to Destroy mode. So if you'll notice how this kit, every panel on it, all the green stuff, if you look, there's a panel over it that looks like it could slide down or collapse up or collapse inward. And that was a terrible jump cut, and I apologize, but it is much, much later now than when I reviewed that last part by about a month. And I'm just finally wrapping this video up. So like I was saying, on the Master Grade kit, all of these things slide in and out. And that means every time you grab on part of the figure, things are going to fold up or flop out, and they're just going to drift around. And if you're familiar with Rodimus Prime from the Transformers Masterpiece line and how he sort of transformed from Hot Rod to Rodimus, and it was just a bunch of little things that could be easily bumped out of place, imagine that times 60, and that's the Master Grade Unicorn Gundam. Now, this guy, fortunately, isn't that bad. However, and again, it was so long ago, I can't recall if I actually mentioned this, but these back, what are those butt flaps back here, they're just like tabbed in an angle and just barely. So every time you touch them, they like compress in and then fall off. Because that's just a natural place to grab a figure is around the waist. At least for me. I don't know if that's how everyone is, but I usually grab a figure on the waist because that way it can post the torso. It doesn't, get in the way of the legs. But that way, every time you press that, it folds in those, and when you take your hand off, they fall out, and then you need to reposition them. And as you're holding on to it to reposition them, something else goes out of position. And while it isn't as bad as the Master Grade, it's still something to keep in mind. And also, you'll notice that I have him holding the bazooka now, if you can get past the fact that I'm doing a terrible hand camera job, instead of, actually having it on a tripod. But again, I'm just in a hurry to just finish up this video, because it's been a long time coming. Anyway, you can see the boosters a little better here and just how much space they take up. Because seriously, it's tough to find a space for this guy. Anyway, my overall thoughts, this figure is pretty good. It's definitely one of the more expensive high grades, but it was quite a complex build, and while the finished product has its good sides and its bad sides, ultimately it's really kind of a personal opinion thing as to whether or not you should get it. I think it was pretty good, but there are certainly better Gundams out there. Anyway, this has been Second Soundwave. I hope you enjoyed this review, and there may be more coming. Who knows?